Good morning. Joining us this morning is Brian Lazar, the Deputy Director from the Colorado Avalanche Information Center. Good morning, Brian.
Good morning.
So tell me about the current avalanche conditions across Colorado.
Well, we're in this period without a lot of new snowfall and this little bit of a warm up where avalanche conditions are slowly stabilizing. They're slowly getting better. We've got, about half of our forecast zone sitting at moderate danger, which is level 2 of 5. And then the other half, which is most of the western zones and down into the southern region in the San Juan Mountains, are just still sitting at considerable danger. But this is a kind of different flavor of moderate and considerable avalanche hazard than we've seen in quite some time. So even though we're dropping down to moderate danger in some areas, don't be fooled. It's still dangerous avalanche conditions.
And this has been a particularly dangerous and deadly avalanche season throughout Colorado. Why is that?
It has. It started, the story for this season really started back in late October and early November when we had early season snowfall, and then we had prolonged dry periods. And those created really sensitive weak layers widely distributed across the mountains. And then as soon as we got snowfall starting in kind of late December, we built stiffer layers of snow on top of those weak layers. And so we developed a snowpack structure that's really worrisome and conducive to producing avalanches. And so we haven't seen a snowpack structure quite this bad in terms of the avalanches it's producing and the number of people it's catching and even killing since about 2012. So this is kind of this, a dangerous snowpack you might only see once every decade. So we're really trying to encourage people to readjust their travel plans. The way they've approached traveling in backcountry avalanche terrain in previous years very well may not work this year. So we just need to give much wider buffers traveling around avalanche terrain for this season.
And many more people headed to the backcountry this this season because of COVID as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to tease out the impacts from COVID itself. We've seen an increase in backcountry use, even pre-COVID. But as with many things, COVID seemed to accelerate trends that were already in place. And so we are seeing a lot of people in the backcountry. Like I said, we were kind of starting to see that trend even before COVID. But then, last spring when ski areas had to shut down and things like that, we did see more people into the backcountry. And so, that's exacerbated that trend a little bit.
And what do you suggest for folks if they are headed to the backcountry? What is the best thing to keep them safe?
Well, there's three main things we really want to encourage people. And it starts with getting the forecast. So you can go to colorado.gov/avalanche, or you can download the CAIC app on your smartphone. And then you can get current mountain, snowpack, and avalanche conditions updated every day for anywhere you're going into the mountains of Colorado. So it starts by having the best information so that you can make travel plans and trip options that are suitable for current conditions. That's number one. Number two is if you're going to travel in backcountry avalanche terrain, you need to carry the minimum appropriate rescue gear. And that at minimum requires an avalanche transceiver, which everyone in your group wears and knows how to use, an avalanche probe, and then a shovel. And of course, you're always safer if you're traveling with other people, with partners that you can form a team with and that share a common sense of risk acceptance and know how to use all this rescue gear. And then the kind of third leg in this safety triad is getting the avalanche education. So there's a wide variety of recreational avalanche courses available throughout Colorado, which are easy to find. You could find them in our education resources page, or go to avtraining.org or avalanche.org to find courses near you. But what taking an avalanche course allows you to do is, one, better use the forecast to develop good trip options, but it also teaches you how to practice with that rescue gear so you know what to do instinctively in case something goes wrong.
Yeah, being prepared is very important. Moving into spring, we're moving into March here. What can we expect danger wise?
Because of these pronounced weak layers in our snowpack, we're going to go through some kinds of transition. We ultimately, at some point every year, end up with a fairly mature, snowpack that has seen a lot of meltwater and drainage gets established. But while we're in that transition into a kind of mature, well-drained spring snowpack, we will likely see avalanche conditions avalanche danger increase as we start to introduce meltwater into the snowpack. Just yesterday, for example, was quite a bit of warm up, and we saw some loose, wet, and wet slab avalanche activity. You can expect that kind of thing to creep up to other aspects besides low elevation southerly. So creep around to other slopes facing other directions and up in elevation. So when those weak layers we talked about kind of start to see water for the first time, they often wake up, become reactive, and produce avalanches. And so this transition period, that often happens later in March, we'll probably see some wet avalanche activity. So something to be aware of, I should say. And another good reason to just check the avalanche forecast on a regular basis.
Well, thank you so much for joining us this morning on Mountain Mornings, Brian.
Oh, my pleasure. Thanks so much for having me and get the message out there.